Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of Midweek Matters. I'm joined by Charlie White. Charlie, the rundown's been flipped on its head.
It has, mate. Just as before we came in here, it's very shocking news for South fans. I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say South season is completely in tatters before a ball's been kicked. Cam Murray done his Achilles, Jimmy.
Yeah, that is awful news for South Sydney. I've already said I believe they're light on middles. He made such a difference to that team. The injury to him is devastating, and just the ripple-on effect of seeing Cam Murray go down, what it does, if you're a squad member or a team member at Souths, you're immediately concerned for your mate. And then as that sort of the reality of the season starts to hit home, your belief automatically gets chipped away at. And you start to think, well, Wayne Bennett's come in, last season's gone. We're going to put that to bed. We're going to move on. We're going to go and attack this season, prove all the doubters wrong, showcase what we're about. And then you just start to hang your head and think, how are we going to do this without Cam? Obviously, Latrell injured as well.
Yeah.
But this is not just devastating for the individual, the first team, but the club as a whole. They would be dejected.
I don't think we can sort of underestimate how big this is for South. He's their captain as well. So who now takes the leadership? That's a big question mark, because there's not a heap of clear leaders that stand out and say, oh yeah, I'm going to be the captain of this club. But for me, it's just soul destroying if you're a Bunnies fan. It really is. He's one of their best players, arguably their most influential player. He led the way last year in terms of effort and just trying, even though he had his injuries last year as well. And he's had a tough off-season with injuries as well, got hurt with the Kangaroos. And
that wrist injury, yeah.
Which was quite serious. If he would have missed a huge chunk of the season if there was footy on at that time. So he's gone from that injury now to the Achilles injury. I mean, it's just shattering if you're a Bunnies fan.
It's just popped the bubble.
Yeah.
If you're a Bunnies fan, I mean, let us know if you think the season is salvageable. That's an easy word for me to say. Already people saying Darius Boyd came back in 5 months, but
nah, he'll be done for the year. He'll be done for the year.
It's just even if he does play this, the Souths have got to cling on to some sort of hope, and then Murray come back. Not too dissimilar situation to the Roosters, where they're probably going to try and cling on to hope that they can play finals with the view of Smith and Walker returning in the middle to the back end of the season. But from a Souths perspective, this is just on the eve for a player as well to get injured at training. It's the crappiest way to get an injury. Yeah. Getting injured at training with such a severe one, be going over in your head, well, was this always going to happen? Or is this because of the training load? They'll be looking over things with a fine-tooth comb, their S&C department. But first off, to Cam Murray, nobody likes to see this, get well soon.
Yeah.
But it's devastating for Souths and their chances. I'm trying to think how Wayne will manage this.
Klemmer will play at lock. Obviously, that's where he played when Murray missed that time last year. So there's a fix there. Great player, Klemmer.
Yeah,
but then where are they going to get their front rowers from as well then? Because we were sort of speculating that Klemmer might play in the front row there. So yes, he moves there and that fills a spot, but then it just falls apart elsewhere as well. And Murray, not only is he big loss for South Sydney, he's big loss for the Blues as well. Huge loss for New South Wales. Not to look too far ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right, Charlie. And just with Murray and Klemmer, they're very different in their approach and the amount of clean-up work that Cam Murray does. And you look at that middle unit that have lost Damien Cook, which brings experience and leadership, and the voice. So they're down Cook, which obviously they knew was going to happen anyway. They made that decision. But then Cook, Murray gone, you just wonder how that middle unit, which I previously thought was light on troops, they passed on Matt Lodge. They didn't recruit middles. They recruited halves. And I just can't I already thought it was going to be a huge challenge for Wayne Bennett anyway, coming into this South Sydney team, where I think the previous time he came in, he had a roster ready to go and attack and attempt to win a premiership. This is a different roster that just didn't need this. They need for Wayne to have what he would have had a successful season at the South, he would have needed a pretty favourable injury run, suspension run, get Latrell firing again, get that combination Cody, Jack Whiten, find a game plan for Lewis Dodd to sort of settle the ship. Hopefully Mamazula's comes to light, but the leadership is so important, and with Murray gone, it just I just can't see them playing in the 8.
Nah, I think it's impossible. I think you got to put a line through them. And even there's so much other stuff going on at South anyway, regardless of having these injuries. Obviously, Latrell's done another hammy now. That's not his first hamstring injury. Very much a reoccurring injury. He relies on explosiveness. That's going to knock his confidence about. Then you've also got Lewis Dodd. Could be a dud signing. We don't know yet. He hasn't played a game, so it's hard to judge.
I don't like that.
But he's on good money.
Yeah,
he's on
I don't
good
like
money,
that label for someone that's not.
No, I said he could be, and we don't know yet. So when he could come and he could fire, and it could be amazing for South Sydney. But he was playing reserve grade in England. They gave him a lot of money, and in the trials, him and Jamie Humphries, at times it looked like Jamie Humphries was the more dominant half. Then you've also got to think about the Josh Schuster situation. Well, apparently he's not been behaving very well at South Sydney. He's not been putting the effort in required. He's had 10 months out of the game. You think that would be enough time to sharpen up and be like, oh, I just lost a huge deal. I need to rip in. That's not worked out or hasn't worked out yet.
The thing,
then
sorry, go
you
on.
go. No, you go, mate. You go.
Well, I was going to say on Schuster, and with Josh Schuster, South signed him on minimum wage. So if he's not all in, it doesn't matter. It's not the same as what he was at Manly. I feel sorry for Josh Schuster because he's become a public interest story, and he's become almost the guy people love to hate, because if you're the NRL fan, you're watching, and part of your dreams about being there, and you would every NRL fan would think, oh, I would have loved to have made it as a professional footballer, but for different reasons I didn't, or I couldn't, or whatever it may be. But when you watch Josh Schuster play, you'd think, what I'd give for that talent. So it's very difficult for the fan at home to understand why, if you're blessed or you've developed this natural talent for football and be labelled what people would say a natural footballer, like people scream at their TV, people shake their head in disbelief when they read the newspaper or the article that says Josh isn't applying himself the best way possible, because people are out there going, I want what he has. And his talent has given him this opportunity. But with South Sydney, they didn't fall for the $500,000, the $800,000 a year contract for Josh. They give him minimum wage because they knew that this was a possibility for him to maybe not fall back in love with the game. And this isn't the first athlete in our game to do it, and it won't be the last athlete either. Jamie Lyon just decided, no, I'm going to go and play in the bush. Came to St. Helens, came back to NRL.
Jamie Lyon had an incredible career, though, sort of did everything he can in the game, though, as well.
Yeah, he did, but he didn't want to play Origin. He's like, that's not for me. And you can imagine New South Wales fans being like I'd do anything to play for New South Wales. Like, why? They can't understand it. And for Josh, I hope he gets the support he needs. And even myself, Charlie, right, as a very emotional person, I've fallen out of love with the game at times. I had it taken away from me at times as well, and thought I'm never going to ever jeopardize this again. And sometimes athletes, players make strange decisions that the people at home cannot comprehend them making, and be like, well, if I was an NRL player, I'm just living by the book and I'm all in. But it doesn't always work that way. And the different individual character traits, sometimes it just, it's even difficult for me as an ex-player. And I think back and go, God, the life of an athlete is the best thing ever. Like what I'd give to be young again, what I'd give to have that opportunity laid bare, whether you win or lose, and ride that emotion. And, even now as a pundit, you think, you talk about the game, but I'd give anything almost to go and have that opportunity to play again. And part of me thinks, like, why isn't Josh doing this? But then we're all different, and I think you've got to respect that.
Yeah. I get you feeling sorry for him, and I know he's been through a lot with his mate dying, Keith Titmus, and he witnessed all that, so he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And that was his best mate as well. So that's going to knock a player about, and it's going to make them question their life and why they're doing things. And if football's the most important thing that matters to him, I get all that. It's still an issue for South Sydney, though, if you give a roster spot to a guy who doesn't want to play. That's a roster spot.
Yeah,
it's a roster spot that's gone. You need to make sure you don't lose roster spots. We're going to talk about that a bit later on with the Dragons chasing Klemmer, but they don't have a roster spot for him at the moment. So they've got to move pieces around. So I think that's still an issue for South Sydney, and Wayne Bennett would have backed himself to redeem Josh Schuster, and it could have been incredible for Josh. He's going to be one of those stories where it doesn't work out, and that's a shame. And because he really has, because he has the talent. Like when I first watched him come on, he became like one of my favourite players almost immediately with the little chip kicks he was doing and all these no-look passes, and they were just, when it was on, it was so good to watch. And I remember when he made his debut a few years ago, and it was incredible. It was like, wow, who's this kid? He's incredible. But it hasn't worked out, and it's not going to work out by the looks of things.
Well, what he does, Charlie, brings something different to what some would argue can be quite a robust game plan of, you exit out of yardage and you put your long kick and you kick chase, and then you set to a post or a scrum line, and then you've got your traditional block plays, and you try and create a 3-on-2 opportunity and you ice it up the back. But Josh brought something different when he was on, and when it worked and he chipped over the top and regathered, and people go, what? How good's that to watch? That's highlight reel stuff. But then when it didn't work out, you get people blowing up going, yeah, you can't try that. Yeah, and look, I get it. But yeah, when you put it into context like that, from a club point of view, from a business point of view, yes, it's a roster spot, but also it's not going to cost them, that significant amount of money, and you'd look back and go, it was a gamble worth taking.
Yeah,
from South Sydney. I think even though it didn't pay off, I think it was a gamble worth taking, but it's in limbo at the moment, and whether we see him playing the NRL again is. Yeah, I can't envisage it.
Nah, and it's tough for South fan because last year they had so many injuries as well. Like, I don't know if you then start looking at the strength and conditioning and what they're doing there, if there's a lot of recurring injuries and things like that in the club. The other one, though, that's going to be a big story for South this year is Cody Walker's still without a deal for next year. So is Alex Johnston, two legends of South Sydney. As the weeks go on and they don't get the deal that they're hoping to get, if that's the way it plays out for South, that's going to become an issue as well, because they're going to become two disgruntled players. We saw what happened a couple of years with Josh Mansour coming on, talking about the way Jason Demetrio handled it. Players will start to maybe kick stones if they don't get the deal they want. That's a huge issue, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's an issue at a lot of clubs, and the retiring, the aging legend of the club is very difficult to manage. But if there's a person that can have those difficult conversations, it's Wayne. That he's very good at that. And I think if you're Cody, if you're Alex, and if you play well enough, you'll get a deal. And if you don't, a person that will look you square in the eyes, no bullshit, no messing around, no passing the buck that it's the board or the head of recruitment, Wayne will tell them to their face. And that honesty that Wayne brings, you might not like what he's got to say, but you respect it. And I think, look, it goes either the way of they play really well and they earn the deal, and Wayne will look them in the eye and say, you've earned this, or they'll show that maybe their bodies can't go at the same level as they used to. And I know what that's like, and it's incredible because you fall off a cliff. It's actually insane how quickly you just don't have the ability to play. And if that happens, then Wayne will look them in the eye and tell them the truth, which, is the best way to do about it.
Because the other one with AJ is, so Munro's going to be their left winger. So AJ has played left his whole career, basically. He's going to then move over to the right, or Tass is going to get that right spot. That's hard for Alex Johnson because he is so close to having his name in the rugby league record books for a long, long time if he can become the leading ever try scorer. And I know he wants to stay at South Sydney, but if you're him, would you consider maybe leaving just to chase that record if you're not going to play? I think he's good enough to be playing in an NRL club somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether it's at South Sydney or not, whether South think Tass is the better player, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Do you put your I don't know because I'm not a try scorer, so I don't know how they're motivated. But I imagine the ones that I've known, they do like scoring tries and they do take it personally.
Yeah,
and it is a bit of a striker in soccer is like they can be a bit like, well, they want to see how many the goal tally at the end of the season.
Yeah,
they judged off that. Like if you're,
but also, man, he's going to be in that Ken Irvine record has been there for so long. Like. It's a huge feat if he can pull it off.
Oh, it'd be massive, massive, Charlie. But again, it's nobody's out there looking for that. Oh, feel good story. Wouldn't it be good for Alex? We'll sign him or we'll play him in this game. It's like it's a brutal business, cutthroat. Yeah. Take no prisoners. Is South Sydney? Is their season a success if they finish in the bottom 4 and Alex Johnson breaks that record? No.
Yeah.
Like he'll get a round of applause at the club presentation night, a pat on the back. He'll get rewarded with I'm assuming a plaque or something like that from the NRL and from South Sydney, and but if that's the highlight of the season, then it's not been a successful year.
Just finally, then on South, are you putting a line through them for the year?
Look, I know you hate the middle 8 chat, and how I separate the clubs into that they're part of the middle 8, and this is exactly why, because it takes a lot to get those teams to be to play finals and make the 8, but it doesn't take much to knock them off, and this is the classic case of South Sydney that 2 days ago, a day ago, before they came to training this morning, they were in my middle 8, where it's like if they work really hard and things click and the stars align, they could play finals. But with something like this, they're an injury away to a star player of it going completely tits up, and that's what happened. And even we are going to speak about David Klemmer. I'm just wondering now if with Schuster, if he gets shown the door, do Souths look to go, we'll bring David Klemmer in?
Oh, yeah. See, I hadn't thought about Souths for him, but I think that's a great shout. If they can get rid of Schuster, that'd be unbelievable for them. And they're going to have to move pretty quickly because I think David Klemmer would have ambitions to play round 1 somewhere. I don't think that's going to be at Wests. But it looks as though the Dragons are in the mixer. Yep.
But with now this happening to South Sydney, that Blake Solly, Wayne Bennett are going to be in discussion. Emergency, can we get this guy in? And what's that going to look like? Yeah.
And Klemmer's not the player he used to be, but he is still a quality front row who can fill a role for them.
Well, he'll get you forward. He makes meters for fun. He's aggressive. Like you say, he's not the same origin. He's not the 2015, 16, 17 origin player, Australian representative player that he once was, but he can still do a very handy job for you.
Yeah. Dragons are the other one interested in him because the only issue for them is they've got no roster spots available at the moment. But Frankie Mola obviously wants out. If they can move Frankie Mola, one, it would free up a spot to get David Klemmer.
Or there's your South Sydney option, Frankie Mola.
Yeah.
So there's 2 front rowers that are available that they'll be going, do we take Klemmer or do we look at Mola if he gets released from the Dragons? And it might be a little bit of Dragons contacting South. They're playing each other in the Charity Shield this week and going, hey, look, can you do us a favour? Can you take Frankie? Right, we'll take Dave. Or what do you want?
Yeah.
You know, like I've got a feeling that's how it might.
Cool.
That's how it might unfold.
A little three-way trade of sorts.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Klemmer, because my understanding that he's got one of these dreaded clauses.
The Isaac Moses clause.
Well, I don't know what it is. This is around if he plays X number of games in season 2025.
Yeah, enacts
then
another
that
year.
enacts another year.
Welsh had it. Welsh had it as well. Woodsy had it a couple of years ago at the Dragons, and they played him in that last game, so he got another year.
Bahulu had a bonus one at the Titans, I believe it was, that he didn't play that last game, even though it was for nothing, so he missed out on that bonus, which, you know, alarm bells would be ringing. But I think it's my understanding that Wests went to Klemmer and said, look, we want you to play, but we don't have plans for you for 2026. So without saying it, they sort of said, why don't we renegotiate the deal and let's take that out and just have the deal for 25.
Yeah.
And obviously that Klemmer's not taking that well, going, no, I'll back myself. And then there's the interesting part in it, because if he does go to the Dragons, we've seen Coach Flanagan say no to front rowers because they've wanted too long. Campbell Gillard being the example where it looked for all money that Campbell Gillard will play for the Dragons until his management wanted, I think, 3 years. Coach Flanagan said 2. He took the long-term approach and said, I'm not going to mess up 27, even though that might be somebody else's problem, by the way. I'm not going to go for the short-term fix. I'm going to make a difficult call to say no to Campbell Gillard 25, 26. So he let him go.
Yeah.
So I applaud Flanagan for if that's what he thinks about Campbell Gillard, then I think you've got to applaud him for that. Campbell Gillard would have other ideas, but then with David Klemmer, where one club says, we don't want you for next year. Maybe that's because they've got May, they've got Bole, they've got Twal, they've got some good middle forwards there. Yeah, maybe they look at it and go, well, you're going to chew up way too much of our cap.
Yeah, and that's the issue. Klemmer's on decent money. And I think he's not really been part of Benji's plans for the whole time, really. He's not someone that Benji signed. He was not someone that Shane Richardson didn't sign him. He's been at the club. It's kind of like from that previous regime, it's another one of those deals lingering around, and they want to move Klemmer on. You obviously played. Did he debut with you?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
What was he like as a player, Dave Klemmer, sort of off the field as well? Because we see him on the field, and you and him had that iconic moment, obviously, where you're pointing the finger and he's there blowing up, and he seems like such a firecracker, but he's a pretty mild-mannered guy, isn't he, off the field?
Oh, yeah, he's very, very different to that person on the field. Like at training, he was always open, energetic, and like great for banter. But then, like, he sort of away from the training ground, sort of kept to himself a lot. Very quiet, very family-orientated man. I think he had a cast of about 1,000 kids, and him and his wife were great, but they did sort of just sort of stick to themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd left the Dogs, and then I think he left the year after, and I from all accounts, he was pretty shattered because that was his club. But he's had a great career so far, and what he'll bring to the Dragons South, or who knows where else, is plenty of aggression, plenty of meters, plenty of carries. And I did see an article not long ago in the Telegraph around the stats that make the difference, and it's usually on meters gained is the biggest causation of a victory. Yeah. And Klemmer will bring you meters.
He was close to getting in the Origin team a couple of years ago as well, so he's still close to that top level. I think he's probably realistically going to look at maybe a 2-year deal, I reckon, though. I don't think many clubs will come in for more than that 2 year
Well, he was
mark.
contracted for 25 and 26. I think he'd just want that.
Yeah.
Then that'd be fair enough.
Mate, one other, speaking of front rowers and lunatic front rowers, Big Nelson and Sofa Solomono. I don't know if you've seen this on socials or not, but basically he is doing this new form of rugby league, I guess you'd call it, called Run It. And basically they're going to do like a 10-meter run it straight challenge, 20 grand's on the line. I think they got a sponsor, Ultra Tune attached to it, I saw. Basically, it's anyone listening could probably sign up, I assume. That was the vibe I got from the video I watched. They're looking for footy players, and they're going to do this big competition in Melbourne of guys just running it straight at each other.
What could possibly go wrong?
I don't know how you ensure that. That's an insurer's nightmare.
You'd sign a waiver.
Yeah.
And you just say, look, we hold no accountability. Well, you have to sign a waiver to go to like the Climb Fit
Sky Zone or something like that.
Do all these. You take your kids down to the trampoline places, flip out or whatever it is. You sign your life away. You have, if they do their neck, it's unlucky.
Your fault.
Look after them yourself. But I imagine there'd be a waiver being signed. But there'd be plenty of blokes out there that'd be like, "Oh, I've still got it," or "I fancy myself." But I tell you what, I've seen the dimensions. There's an ability to put a little bit of footwork on in there, but I think that would be
frowned upon.
Frowned upon, yeah. If you're putting the shimmy, like Sean Johnson could probably enter it and he'd win every time.
Yeah.
If you're SJ and you need some money for 20 grand, fly to Melbourne.
Nelson says you have to run it straight, though. Yeah, well, that's what you're judged on.
If Nelson says it, then that's what you do. But it's a point scoring thing, isn't it?
It's like 4 rounds. I read 4 rounds, something like that. Mate, I reckon it'd be great to watch. But there's going to be heaps of concussions. There's going to be
there'll be people knocked out for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be intense. Like you see those videos all the time on social media of mates running it straight after a few beers, and so many guys get knocked out doing it.
I wonder if you can't have alcohol to do it, but it helps. It does help. And people often ask you, "Oh, mate, can I run it straight?" It's like, no, because it's actually dangerous. Yeah. And I reckon they'd have to have no pros involved or ex-pros. There's almost a bit of that. This is a couple of different examples, but if you have like the promotion for win a car, if you like kick a goal from like the 20-meter line, the 40-meter line, the halfway, or
yes, I do.
You can't be an ex-pro. You've got to be like fully amateur. Yeah, you've got to be, or you go with the basketball. If you can half court shot, and you nail it. You can't be an ex-pro.
Funny story around that. Someone did nail a half-court shot in a game a couple of years ago, and for like 20 grand, nailed it. But then he'd played college basketball, and in their fine print they had something around you can't have played any basketball at a high level, so he didn't get the money.
Yeah, he didn't get the money. So there'd be stuff around that where you can't have any sort of... because I think with like boxers and MMA fighters, like their hands are considered like lethal weapons.
Yeah.
So if they're in an altercation publicly and they chin someone, it's basically like stabbing them or shooting them with a gun.
Same with like black belt people. Is a black belt?
It comes with a level of responsibility. So I can't imagine too many ex-pros, but I mean, it's an interesting concept, Charlie. One that back in the day I would have loved being a defender and just gone, I'll stand my ground, I'll take you on. But these days that ship has sailed.
It's interesting. I'll be interested to know what the NRL think of it though, because it's kind of a bit, it's a little bit on the nose for what the image of the game they're trying to present, and it's definitely not something that they'd want to endorse.
No, they wouldn't want to endorse it, but then it appeals to a certain personality type and a certain audience. That.
It's like the UFC. You know how they got the slap? Like Dana White's got the slap thing now. Like it's kind of like the slap version of rugby league.
Well, again, we know how the game is changing and what type of fan that they're looking to showcase our sport to. But then there was an ice hockey game, an NHL game a couple of days ago where, the US national anthem got booed in Canada, and within 10 seconds there was 3 brawls.
In the crowd or on the field?
No, on the field.
Yeah, right.
On the field. Like 3 brawls within the space of it just gloves off, we're going. And there are people, whether you like it or you don't, that that appeals to where they go to watch the NHL.
Yeah.
To watch people fight. And it might be old school, but it is attractive for some people.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people want to watch it. A lot of people want to sign up for, especially 20 grand on the line as well. Won't be me. I definitely wouldn't sign up for it, but I'll watch it.
I reckon there's
I'll
got to be
watch
some
it.
weight categories there as well. Like,
Get me
you
sort of
can't-
70 kilo,
yeah,
70 kilo
the
blokes
70
going.
kilo guys.
That'd be a good division.
That would be.
But see, then you've got like some really like small, fast guys. And also like the thing with that is like there's going to be some really strong 70 kilos and then some real weaklings as well.
Well, if you're a weak 70 kilo guy, don't enter. If you're a strong 70 kilo guy, get in the mixer. It's as simple as that.
Simple as that, mate.
You know what you're saying, Charlie? No one's forcing you to go.
No.
But you've talked it up now, so good
If you
luck.
need a sideline commentator for it, I'd be happy to help out.
No, I reckon you join in. Can you get us? Do it. Get 20 grand, and we'll split it for the back.
Yeah, rev share. Trials though this weekend. This is kind of the real first weekend of trials in my opinion because proper teams have been named.
I was just talking to Winston, and we're like going through each team. We're like, oh, what about this? And it's like there's a real buzz.
Yeah.
Last week, look, I think a lot of people could take or leave. You don't quite know, but you're looking at these teams, and you're like, I'm actually excited to watch. Couple of interesting selections, obviously as well. Charity Shield, South Sydney's season is in disarray. They will be praying for an injury-free clash in the Charity Shield, but also Damien Cook and Lockie Ilias going up against their old clubs for the first time. That little bit of like, okay, you let us go, and maybe a little reminder about, wouldn't you like us there now?
Don't you reckon that Dragons team looks really strong that they've named as well? When you look at it, and like the guys have got in there, like even just the addition of like Gutho and Cook, it just looks so much better on their team. And DeBellin's there, Luciano Leilua, Sua, they've got like a decent team. I know you're not huge on the Dragons this year, but I think they're going to surprise a few people.
Well, when you look at their team on paper, you know what they're going to do. They're going to be hardworking. Even the fact that Flano named that same starting 13 last week, it sort of indicates that he wants to hit the ground running and get the jump on other teams to start the season and just play a very simple style of football, work hard, big work ethic, and then when the opportunity arises, Cook go, Gutho, you're going to be everywhere. Ilias and Flanagan, do your thing. Luciano, you're gonna play with the ball, and we'll pick up some results.
Yeah, we'll just quickly rattle through these teams then and the games. And
yeah,
just first of all on Manly, very interested to see how Siwa Takiaho goes back in the NRL.
Yeah, most definitely. He, it's been a long time coming. Manly resting a few players, but yeah, interested to they're one of my tips for, without giving too much away, that I'm predicting them to finish particularly high this year.
Then also the Warriors the Manly Seagulls are starting Jazz Tavanga at hooker, Simpkin on the bench. That's interesting for me.
Yeah.
Does that mean because really this round as well, what's important for Supercoach? Because people will have their drafts.
Yeah.
Like I've got my draft Friday, and these teams like reveal a bit about what teams are thinking.
Well, Jazz Tavanga played in the front row, arguably the hardest position to play, and then transitioning to hooker.
He's played hooker before though in Warriors at the Warriors at times.
But I reckon that's a awful swap if you Jazz. Seriously? You brought me here to play hooker?
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah, big minutes for him as well.
Well, and also it's not. Well, I say boring. He's not going to be the Cam Smith or a Damien Cook, is he?
No.
You know what I mean? Or a Wade Egan.
No,
I
reckon he'll play the first 20, like take a bit of the sting out of the game, and then Simpkin comes on. He's more of a dynamic, smaller, quicker player.
Yeah, just get your service to DCE and to Brooks.
Great offload. I reckon Tavanga's a good signing for them. And then the Tigers, they've got a few interesting things. Still no Luai, but I mean, Terrell May's going to play, which that'll be great.
You know what I realised? Tigers, they go to Newcastle in the first game. Appy suspended for that first game.
Yeah, right.
And that's a huge contest for them. Like the Tigers want to, like, Knights in round one. It's like, right, okay, both teams under pressure going into the season. Appy suspended. That's not ideal.
No, not ideal. Heath Mason at fullback as well, but You imagine Buller will have that spot once he's back. Not sure if he's injured or not. Doesn't say anything online. And then, mate, the other sort of interesting ones, I don't know if we need to go through every game here, but Tom Duffy at halfback for the Cowboys. Now,
Clifford's injured though, isn't he?
He is. But there is a few whispers that Tom Duffy's won the halfback spot.
Yeah, you were adamant that he's going to get the nod, but if Clifford's fit, we saw the difference he made last year when Townsend went out and he came in.
But I think Tom Duffy has been a really good player for them in the juniors and someone they've looked at for a while, and it's someone they thought could be the halfback to take over from Chad Townsend, like earlier before Chad Townsend obviously left. Tom Duffy looks like a really good young player, and if he's won the halfback spot, it's massive.
Yeah, good on him if he has.
The other sort of interesting ones, Broncos in particular, Shibasaki is playing the centres
Over Mariner.
And then you got Cobbo and Arthurs on the wing.
I'd have Mariner, but that's just personal preference. I don't know. Maybe they're holding it back. Obviously, Billy Walters as well, not in the dummy half position.
Yeah, Corey Pakes.
Corey Pakes has got that. No Blake Moser, he's injured, but interesting to see that talk in the off-season that Carrigan would play front row and Kobe Hetherington would play lock. Obviously, when Maguire got the go-ahead, he stopped Hetherington moving to Tigers, if I recall correctly. Yep. Now, I think that's a big Michael Maguire play because what he's basically saying to Patrick Carrigan is, we don't want a ball-playing lock. And Carrigan, I thought Carrigan mixed his game up really well with the carry-to-pass ratio, not too dissimilar to the Isaiah Yeo style of play. But I think what it says is Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds don't like playing out the back of the ball-playing lock. They don't like that. They want to be first on ball. They want to be on ball half. So if you're shifting Adam Reynolds or Ben Hunt, they want to receive the ball from their dummy half or out the back of the other halfback. They don't want to go through that transition of having a ball player and have their space shut down. They want to be first on ball. And I think that's a Maguire style of play.
Yep.
When I've watched them play, he's never really had that massively over ball playing lock style of player or front row style of player, which, you know, I thought Carrigan did it well last year. I think it brings good balance to their attack, but it's clear that Maguire's just gone, no, we just want you to carry the ball hard and strong, get quick play the balls, fight for quick play the balls, bring your defensive attitude like you do every week, but we don't want you ball playing. And that's when Hetherington comes in, who's, you know, not a ball player, he's a worker. Expect Kobe Hetherington to lead the tackle count for the Broncos and have no more than sort of 5 runs a game. That will be his stats, and he will be there to just work his absolute nuts off.
With Carrigan, would that impact him from like an ego? Is that a bit of an ego hit going from lock to front row, or is it much of muchness?
It has the potential to. It does have the potential to move, if it's not your call, to move positions, and it's not the same. It's not the same game.
Because also we talk about the spine, don't we? 1, 6, 7, and 9, but then always the modern spine, the lock's involved
lock
as well.
Cam Murray, he's a ball playing lock. We see what he brings to New South Wales and to South. Jakey Tebojevic, ball playing lock. Isaiah Yeo is the sort of pin-up boy for the ball playing lock, and what it does for Penrith. Melbourne, they don't really have that. But a number of clubs, Kate Mann, what he does for the Dogs, or whether it's Moran, or whether it's Salmon, you know, they ball play. So, look, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Hopgood is one that goes ball plays a bit for para with a little bit of late offload as well.
Yep.
So there's no right or wrong way to do it. But if you're Patrick Carrigan, your minutes might be down because you've got to take those kickoff carries which drain you emotionally, where Carrigan would stand on the 10 and he could sort of almost take play 4 or look to ball play. He's going to have to be back there taking those kickoff carries. You know, you take your carries off the tap where you just lay the line. Like, is Carrigan going to be in love with his role? Probably not, but that's not to say he can't fall in love with just going, I'm just going to roll my sleeves up and do my job for the team.
Yep.
It's maybe not about the individual needs versus team needs are very different, but it will be interesting to see just, you know, what it's doing to Carrigan deep down and then what he puts out there. And, if results don't go well, this is where Patrick Carrigan, who's one of the leaders of the club, could go, mate, why am I just being used to just cart the ball up?
Yeah.
Maybe if, and this can force separation. And we looked at how the Broncos last year in particular didn't look like a team that was connected. In fact, remember, Carrigan scored in that game against the Dolphins. Nobody celebrated with him. Nobody. Yeah. So then if Carrigan is all of a sudden changing his role within the team and then not getting results, if Hunt and Reynolds aren't creating things off being that first receiver, on ball halfback, Carrigan might be looking at it and going, well, what was I doing wrong? Maybe it is time for me to start ball playing again, and that can create division. And the Broncos last year, they looked divided. Could something like this bring them back together, or it could break them again?
Another one, there was some talk that Jake Cavarillo might play in the halves alongside Katoa for the Dolphins, but Cody Nikorima and Katoa are in the halves this weekend. Mate, the Titans, I've not got a read on the Titans just yet because it's really hard to tell if this is just they're still not playing their full strength side. We've got De Groot at fullback.
It's Hasler all day, mate. This is Dez playing mind games before round one. You've got obviously Campbell and
so Campbell's
Pereira.
In the 18 jersey, and then Keeney's at 14.
Yeah,
Cam Pereira's not on the team.
Yeah,
you got De Groot at fullback.
Mate, this is Dez.
Yeah.
He's playing Ducks and Drakes. He's playing games.
Brian
already.
Kelly's on the bench.
It's Dez. Tino's on the. It's Dez. That's all it is.
So he doesn't want to reveal his plan.
Doesn't want to reveal his team.
Okay,
that's what he's doing. He doesn't. Well, I can't recall who the Titans play in round one, but he does not.
Got the bye.
Oh, that's bad news for the Titans players, by the way. That is horrible news. They've got the bye for round one. What a kick in the bollocks that is for them, because there's only one thing Des knows to do in a bye, and that is train you even harder. Maybe they've missed out on a mini preseason in the season with that, but it's Des playing games.
Just how paranoid is he?
It'd be like a 9.5 out of 10.
Would be great to get him in here.
It's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing necessarily. But I know that he is going in. That he'll know his team, barring injuries, but he won't want anyone to know.
So So De Groot's not going to be the fullback for the Titans round one.
De Groot's not playing fullback. No, and obviously he's had a couple of players, back up from the intensity that was the All Stars game, like Campbell, like Cam Pereira, but he's just playing games. There's no way De Groot's being full. Like, are you joking? Don't fall into the Hasler trap.
I won't believe it. Max Plath in the back row, Gilbert at lock. Are you surprised by that? I thought maybe Gilbert would be back row, Max Plath lock, given how good he was last year.
I think for Gilbert, though, with that injury, it's less lateral movement.
Playing at lock. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In one of the big things, though, that you've not mentioned, Lomax at centre surprised me.
Well, mate, I thought they'd give that to him. He's wanted that position. It was one of the reasons why he wanted to leave the Dragons, was they weren't playing where he thought he was his best position.
I know, but it just...
The Kangaroos
and I thought
winger.
the same, but Kangaroos origin winger, best winger in the comp last year. Interesting.
Very interesting. Just quickly then as well, Roosters, Billy Smith looks like he's injured, unfortunately, which is heartbreaking. I want Billy Smith to play rugby league. He's an absolute gun when he's fit. Hopefully he gets his body right. But some interesting news then for Roosters fans. Robert Toya, who is meant to be an absolute superstar in the making. And Mark Nawangini-Tawase in the centre spot. So I imagine all off-season he's just been learning about defensive reads in the NRL.
Yeah. Interesting year ahead for the Roosters, and we've spoke about it in the season preview coming out this week. They are decimated with their experience going out the door, looking at a bit of a different team on paper. It's the lineup. It just you obviously no Smith, no Walker. Just looked like, and you think Joey Manu, and how many times they just give the ball to Manu and he'd come up with something different, and it's just not there.
It's not the same. I still think their team on paper is good, though, and I think we're underrating them a little bit. It's whether or not Sandon Smith and Chad Townsend can bring that creativity. Because you don't want Teddy taking over too much in attack, because that's hurt the Roosters in the past when Teddy's tried to do too much.
I wonder, the more I've thought about the Roosters, I just wonder if Coach Robinson will change how they play for the beginning of the season until Walker and Smith come back. Because
Like keep it simple, is that what you're thinking?
very simplistic game plan and just grind victories out, as opposed to the flashy brilliance of a Walker, of a Manu. They can't do that. They can't do that. So they've got to bring in, Sandon, Smith, and Townsend. Obviously, Connor Watson at 9. You play a simplistic game and just grind victories out.
And it will be a lot of bombs to the corner for Tupu. Young's big.
Yeah.
Nwangani Tuwasa is apparently their best leaper now in their club already. Cheese has said that when he's been here.
Yeah, so there's your tactic. Let's not play too expansive. Let's get down into field position.
Kicks up to the corners. And Chad Townsend is excellent at that.
Yeah, so there's your game plan. I would make a prediction that I think the Roosters are going to play a very simple style of football up until Walker and Smith's return.
That's probably us then, Jimmy.
Yeah, that's it. Chico, we're off to Vegas very soon.
Absolutely. Also, Cairns Brothers, you're doing a sportsman's lunch up there with Shane Webke and Willie Mason. We've got the link of where you can buy tickets as well. Chuck that in the bio, so you can just jump on, click on there if you're in the Cairns area. Going to be a lot of fun. I think
March 29th?
March 29th, and tickets are very limited because I think there's only a couple hundred tickets.
Very small venue, so get your tickets quickly. It's going to be a fantastic evening, afternoon. So, yeah, I'll be doing my best to keep one of those people controlled.
And who's that? Who's that?
Well, if you need to ask the question, you won't understand the answer, Charlie. So, on that bombshell, that's going to leave us for another week. Next time we speak to our audience, we'll be in Las Vegas. So, this will all be a blur.